John, take us through some of the most recent Jelly Bean videos, especially around the attack tunnels. What can you say about, the Israelis are talking a lot about tunnels. We've got some videos. Set this up for us.
Yeah, so a part of Israel's attempt to exit the war in Gaza is to say that they destroyed the tunnel network. And so we've got a couple of videos here that show the use and the significance of the tunnel network that exists. This is a war in Barej. This is in central Gaza. This war in this central Gaza area is only about a week old in intensity. And you can see an engineering troop carrier there with a soldier outside of it. And in this video, we're seeing them use an attack tunnel to come out into open space. And also, if we note this one, it's not a helmet cam. So they're sending the cameraman and the shooter out the same tunnel and getting within, a couple 100 feet of an Israeli armored vehicle. And we can see in this video also that the spotter is also the cameraman in that video. So that's using a tunnel that the Israelis don't know are there to access that close to an Israeli position. And again, we talk about this all the time on these videos, but just the courage and commitment to stand in an open field like that, sort of like the number one rule of guerrilla warfare, is not to be out in the open space, but to use concealment to attack. And these Palestinians are using a tunnel, which effectively operates as concealment, to access this area where the Israelis have just set up to start operating. And so it gives you a clue at the type of tunnel network that exists. And maybe if we can go to the next one, Tamara, this is also in Barej. This is again, very close distance to Israeli armored vehicles. So the tunnels are able to be either dug really quickly like that or already exist in these places. Either way, that's significant. And now we've taken out, and one of the reasons we call them jelly beans was because we were worried about the sensors. But in this video, so we've taken out the audio. But in this video, you can see also the shooter and the cameraman are separate, and they both go here. You can watch them go down into the tunnel together. They sent two people out the same attack tunnel. And then here at the end of this clip, you can see them climbing over each other to get back into the tunnel safely to fight another day. And so you can see that this attack tunnel network, it's not just a defensive network where they can, protect their fighters and have logistics, but they're able to use the branches of this tunnel network to access Israeli forces. And this is something that will happen increasingly if Israel is attempting to set up a buffer zone. What we're looking at right there is a shooter coming out the tunnel and firing into what Israel is calling the buffer zone. And part of its apparent part of its attempt to wind down the war in Gaza is to establish themselves in this buffer zone. And right here, you're seeing them bulldozing trees in a forested, olive tree area, destroying the trees and then bulldozing the land. And this video just shows you that the more they do that, the more accessible they are by the fighters. And this is in Barej, this is in central Gaza, but we can see the use of tunnels also in Khan Yunis. If we see this next clip in Khan Yunis, here you can see how the tunnel is dug there. So they're using, and look at the proximity. He goes, checks, see how close it is, the armored vehicle right beside him. He gets passed by his assistant here, a Shawaz magnetic explosively formed penetrator, which we talked about on last episode. And once again, also on last episode, we showed hand delivery to the spot on the turret of the tank that it's weakest. Something we've also seen Qassam give their fighters that kind of information about where to hit. So again, you can see the tunnel. So the tunnel network exists under the ground. Once they spot the positioning of the Israelis, then they're digging that last little bit to make the attack tunnel. And if the Israelis are setting up in the buffer zone, this is something that we're going to see more of. Again, just incredible courage and military acumen to carry out your mission. That tank is operated. Somebody is inside that. And there's also tanks all around that. And so we're seeing that attack tunnel be used as a hint of what the massive tunnel network that Israel is claiming, with a lot of counting statistics, like Israel saying, like, we've destroyed, we've kind of covered it on this show, like 500 tunnels. And then they said 800 tunnels. Now they're saying 1,500 tunnels.
So, Jon, one question I have, when I saw this, I mean, it's so incredible for so many reasons, but you can see that's a freshly dug tunnel. Yeah. And so I think, in a way, that this tells us that thinking about the tunnel network as some static thing that's been built, like a metro system, like, yes, occasionally every 50 years they might build a new line, but that's the wrong way to think about it. The tunnel network is dynamic, it's living, it's changing all the time. Is that a better way to think about it?
Yeah, and it was described by the Israelis that were down there as a spider web, right? So it's not just a straightaway that takes you from A to B. It's a spider web, and that spider web is both the reason why the Israelis won't be able to neutralize it, but also gives you a clue of the efficacy of using it for different means. So you can use it for logistics, you can use it for moving, but you can also use it as an attack network, and it's the same tunnel network. It's not some separate network. And so I think that this idea that the Israelis, part of their drawdown, they're saying they rotated out 30,000 troops or so. They don't say numbers, but 5 brigades. They said that they're rotating them out and they're beginning to draw down forces. And they're looking for an end game, which involves them being in the buffer zone, with the supposition by Israel that if you're in the buffer zone, you're pushing Palestinian rocket fire or October 7th military attacks back from the border. But what we're seeing is that if that's the plan for the Israelis, that the guerrilla war element of this fight will take it to them in these areas. It's just the tunnel network, to say the Israelis to say 1,500. So even if they're lying about that number, the fact that they're using a number that's that enormous, and you're still seeing that very few senior Qassam leaders in Gaza are being hit. So they're clearly being able to use the tunnel to protect their forces. We have no idea how many of the 20 plus thousand people they've killed are Hamas fighters, but the number that it suggests from everything that we've seen is nowhere near what the Israelis are saying. And they're saying 8,000, and 8,000 of a 40,000 member force, plus the 10 other groups that are involved in the armed struggle, plus any Palestinian in Gaza who becomes a guerrilla fighting this occupation. So we can see that militarily they're not anywhere near where they can say the Israelis told The Economist, which has sort of been the lead in getting Israeli intelligence information about this, that the command and control structure of Qassam has been completely disabled, that the command and control structure doesn't exist at all anymore for Qassam,
and that's how they were able ludicrous. They were able to fire those missiles at Tel Aviv at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve. And another thing, just echoing your comments about Saleh al-Aruri, and what's the impact? This, I'm not changing the subject. I'm going to bring it back to this, but I want to say, we can see the impact in terms of the strikes and demonstrations across the occupied West Bank. That this is only increasing the support for Hamas. I mean, Israel thinks they're taking someone out, not to diminish his importance and his contribution that he made to within the organization, but it's increasing the appeal. But I think one effect of what Israel has done is that they're just going to get an even bigger rocket named after him.
Yeah, I mean, that's
The Al-Aruri 300. I don't know what they'll call it, but
yeah, I mean, like, it's true. He's an important leader. There's no question about it. But there's no way that there's no, if you look at the trajectory at the course, like I remember when I was reporting in Gaza was the time that they were assassinating Sheikh Yassin and Abdulaziz Rantisi. And at the time, it seemed like, what is Israel doing? This is the craziest thing. You know, but if you look back on it, the group isn't impacted by that. And that's the leadership. But the actual fighting force, when they're saying that they've disabled the command and control of the fighting force, Qassam brigades are an organized military. They're an organized, as you've talked about before, order of battle of a conventional army, Ali. And so when they lose their fighters, they replace them in a logical, you know, following on their leadership. It's easy. It's obvious who they'll replace them with. And maybe it's not quite as clear with Aruri because of his relationships with Nasrallah and the Iranians who they'll replace him with. But over the course of history, when they've killed these leaders, we can all in the public basically name who the next leader is going to be, right? It's not it's a mystery within the movement that we have no idea. The leadership in the movement is obvious and it's known. And so these kind of attacks, they don't have any significance on the functioning of the group over the long term. Again, he's a significant loss. There's no question about it. But when we're talking about command and control and breaking down command and control, we're going to go into a set of videos here, one from Qassam and one from 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞, that shows behind the scenes how these videos are made. And so
Yeah, let's go to
it
that.
gives you a sense. So here they say, after they pass, we'll send you a signal. We'll say they've gotten close. You see him on the phone there. He says, after that, you send the shooter, you send the spotter, then the shooter, his helper, and the cameraman. And then we see these guys go out. They're on a phone, on a closed phone line. They move through the buildings. These guys are saying, look, there he is. There he is. They're seeing the Israelis in the position. You can see a way the cameraman's setting up the shot. He's in a separate spot. And he's saying, look at the upper floor. There they are. There they are. And the other fighter says to him, relax, relax. Let them collect. So there's more of them there to carry out the attack. Again, this is a behind the scenes that we've never seen. This is the first time they've shown us this. You can see the helper there passing the thermobaric grenade, which is an personnel anti-fortification. It's built for this task. Let's put it that way. And you can see that there's multiple people involved. So there's 4 people in that unit, and he says, we got them. And that's the building after. Again, so he says, we're looking at the armored personnel carrier there. He's saying, send the spotter. After that comes the shooter and his helper and the cameraman. He climbs out the window on an above ground window, climbs across the alley into a separate house where the shooters obviously are, because we saw them on the phone. They're not in the same spot. They're coordinating these in multiple locations. So whatever the opposite of command and control is what we're watching here. We're watching dudes on the phone, phoning each other and setting up an operation in Shujaiya, again, where the Israelis were hit very hard in this war and in each previous war.
And
again,
once
so
again,
just
the Israelis in that video showing their love of Windows.
yeah, it still hasn't changed. They're in the windows all day, all week this week. It's not clear. I don't know if some of these are reservists that just have no idea, and that's part of the thing they're rotating out. It's not, I mean, people say it in the comments underneath. There's soldiers saying that this is like literally the first day of basic training. It's not a sophisticated military assessment to not stand in a window.
But I mean, is it, you know, John, we've all seen these videos, okay? Haven't they seen them? Or are they in such a bubble of propaganda and indoctrination that, do they know what's happening?
I don't know if that's clear. I don't know if that's clear because we haven't seen that kind of lessons learned stuff. I don't know if they're just all into their TikTok videos. Like the difference, the juxtaposition between the Palestinian resistance videos and the Israeli TikTok culture just couldn't be more. It couldn't be more stark. It's not clear that the Israelis, I mean, a lot of this, let's say for the resistance, this is very disciplined. They're blurring the buildings. They're blurring, obviously, their fighters. They're releasing the videos not necessarily the same day. So they're not giving the Israelis that information. In their field reports, they write basically 𝐓𝐡𝐞 details all of their attacks, but they generally detail them along an axis of fighting, not in a specific area necessarily, but in a wider area, basically corresponding to the battalions that are fighting in this area. So this is the 𝐓𝐡𝐞 battalion carrying out this behind the scenes operation. And then we have another one from 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿 that is just from yesterday. Again, moving through the rubble, which we'll show again, using a conventional RPG-7 that 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿 uses, moving through the neighborhood with knowledge of the neighborhood, passing the weaponry through these mouse holes that are created, that are part of the urban warfare landscape. And 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿, as I said last time, their videos take you a little bit longer shot on this. But so they've moved through the neighborhood without ever coming out on the street. And then he's creeping up here, and watch when he turns the corner here. It's right there. And so they're scoping the neighborhood with spotters, and then they're moving through the rubble to get this shot. And again, so that's a behind the scenes. We saw the cameraman operating in this video as well. And so we can see both the military acumen, but also the way that the information war is critical to these fighters. Showing these videos is very important part of the war. In a war where it's difficult to get sort of on the ground journalism of the fighting because of the massacres that Israel's carrying out. You can't do any kind of like on the ground following of these fighters in the same way that maybe covering the Intifada, that we were on the ground with the stone throwing kids and with the fighters on the street. This is Israel has created a massacre scenario in Gaza where it's impossible for journalists to get this kind of stuff. And so part of the information war, and that's a Merkava tank getting hit from close up, too close to for this trophy active protection system to kick in. And so that's part of the thing. That's part of the fighting style, is to move through these walls to get into a better position, not to simply say, oh, there's a tank and fire at it. But you can see by these behind the scenes videos, and that's what this video is showing. It's a behind the scenes video by 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿 that are showing you the way that the cameraman, the cameraman and the spotter and the shooter all function together. And so that's one from 𝐓𝐡𝐞 and one from 𝐓𝐴 𝐤𝐿, really showing us, I think, for the first time, 80 days into this, exactly how these videos are made. And sometimes the videos, with the explosions, because of the explosions, the videos can look like chaos. But these videos show that they're clearly not chaos. They're not just staging some shoot here. They're integrating the information operations within the war fighting. And so we have more of these moving through the rubble. Because the foundation for Israel's war has been to destroy Gaza, as if you're going to make the resistance hand back the prisoners by destroying the landscape.
Thanks for watching this video. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit like, leave a comment. These engagements help us with the YouTube algorithm, and it helps us to get around Silicon Valley censorship as much as possible. It does make a difference. You can also support our journalism by going to electronicintifada.net and clicking on donate now. Thank you.